Representative Jimmy Gazaway. Jimmy, welcome back to the program, sir.
Good morning, Paul. Thank you.
Let's talk a little bit about Issue 1. That's why I wanted to have you on. You have been going all over the state or different venues and that sort of thing, talking about Issue 1 and why it's not a good policy, why it's not a good amendment that needs to be voted for. And so tell us why Issue 1 is bad in your opinion, Jimmy Gazaway.
Well, it's hard to narrow it down. I mean, there's so many reasons why it's bad. But you're right, I have been speaking all over the state about it. And I think primarily, it's just bad for everyday Arkansans. It does several things, first of which is, it limits people's ability to hire the lawyer of their choosing because it limits the amount of money that an attorney can make off a case on attorney contingency fees. And, the point there being, they'll claim that it's to rein in greedy lawyers. Mm-hmm. But the fact is that if you can't get a lawyer, which is exactly what they want. So they'll claim it's to rein in greedy trial lawyers. It's not about that. It's about preventing you from being able to get a lawyer, because if they can prevent you from being able to get a lawyer, then you never bring a claim and they're never held accountable, which is exactly what they want. The second thing that Issue 1 does, and that I think, to me, it's just the most disgraceful thing about it, are the damage caps. Issue 1 will cap non-economic damages at $500,000. And so, then the question is, well, what are non-economic damages? And a lot of people don't understand that, because the proponents of Issue 1, one of the things you'll hear them say so often is, well, economic damages are unlimited. You can get all the economic damages in the world. They're completely unlimited. Well, that's true. But what if you're a person who doesn't have any economic damages? What if you don't have a job? What if you're someone who's confined to a nursing home? Okay? They don't work. There's no hope that they'll ever work. There's not going to ever be any economic damage with somebody like that. Mm-hmm. And so if a person who has no economic damage like that is abused or killed, you're talking about $500,000 maximum compensation for them. And so what are non-economic damages? They're the damages that we define in the law as those for pain and suffering, for scarring and permanent disfigurement, for loss of a bodily member or function. So, for example, you lose an arm, you lose 2 arms, you lose all your limbs, you're paralyzed.
Yeah, I saw an article against Issue 1. It was talking about somebody losing their sight. That would be covered as under this as well.
Absolutely. Right? Loss of a bodily function, your ability to see, and then loss of life. And so that's why you hear it so often referred to as the price of life amendment. And you see, those who are opposed, like me, say that it puts a price tag on life, because if you have no economic damage, and there are a lot of people in our society who don't, those confined to nursing homes, for example,
yep,
then the maximum amount of money that you'll be able to be awarded, because your only damages are going to be non-economic. And so the maximum amount would be $500,000. And what a miscarriage of justice for people who are abused or die because of the neglect of someone else, to say that the maximum amount of recovery that they can receive because the survivors for their loved one's death is $500,000. That is morally wrong. And that's why you see people like Jerry Cox at the Family Council and Rose Mims, not in her capacity with Arkansas Right to Life, but in her personal capacity. That's why you see those folks come out against this, because morally that is wrong.
Yeah, I completely agree with what you're saying. I'm glad that you're coming on and you're making these points. You also have an incentive factor to look at here when it comes to, does a business, nursing home, trucking company, insurance company, whatever, do they have an incentive once they have done something wrong that's resulted in a death or disfigurement or whatever? Do they have
I think it's time we ask ourselves if we still know the freedoms that were intended for us by the Founding Fathers.
They seem to be in full-scale retreat from spending cuts.
and are talking about raising people's taxes again. And I have only one thing to say to the tax increasers. Go ahead, make my day. If we lose freedom here, there's no place to escape to. This is the last stand on earth. Those who would trade our freedom for security have embarked on this downward course. Whether we believe in our capacity for self-government or whether we abandon the American Revolution and confess that a little intellectual elite in a far distant capital can plan our lives for us better than we can plan them ourselves.
Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell is on now.
Hey, folks, welcome to the program today. Thanks so much for being with us, as always. Good morning to you. Many of you are taking your first sips of coffee, and I'm way ahead of you on that. This is the intersection of conservative ideas and reality. We are building a liberty machine, and we're so glad that you're with us. The phone number to call or text is 870-275-9799. That's 870-275-9799. If you'll take a look over at conduitnews.com right now. Joe, can you pull up conduitnews.com on the screen and show it? I know I didn't have this ready, but I wanted to go over some of the headlines as we begin today, as we begin this morning over at conduitnews.com. You have an interesting write-up, headline, ethics/transparency, ACE's carefully crafted language on Trump's trade war with China. You're going to want to check that out at some point in the day. Then right there to the right, you see the red Chinese flag there in that grid. That would be ACE undermines Trump pence on communist China. That's your video. That's the video that has been so popular and an educational tool just demonstrating the juxtaposition between the two. You're definitely going to want to get those two articles at some point. Also, if you missed the program yesterday, let me see here. Scroll up a little bit, Joe. If you missed the program yesterday, you see we have these YouTube videos. Jimmy Gazaway, you definitely you're on archives for some reason. Oh, okay. Must watch Jimmy Gazaway exposes issue 1 as special interest amendment. That was State Representative Jimmy Gazaway, who was on the program yesterday. If you haven't read that, or I'm sorry, watched that interview, please do, or listen to it. It's really good, very comprehensive. You want to check all that out at conduitnews.com. Okay, let's start today by talking a little bit about how the left has a very difficult time doing something called memeing. Are you guys familiar with this? We were talking about this, just a second ago. By the way, we got Mr. Tim Loggins in studio today, and he's already here. He's with the Patriots of Act 746. We're going to have a great segment coming up at 6:33 this morning. I'm going to introduce you to a lady by the name of Pamela DeYoung and an experience that she had with the Arkansas State Police. So, I've got these emails here. Very fascinating stuff. And we'll be talking with Tim and Pamela about that coming up at 6:33. So the left has a problem with memeing. This is not something new. The right has a lot of great memes. Have you noticed this on Facebook and on Twitter? Really funny stuff. Some of it's pretty brutal, but the left doesn't like it because you know why the left can't meme? It's because memes are they rely on humor, and we have seen in the left more and more their inability to appreciate jokes because they can't get over the idea of being triggered. They get triggered if you say something funny. Again, and I mentioned this yesterday, but this is why you have mainstream comedians who don't go to college campuses anymore to do shows, because the social justice warriors are so programmed to hate just to hate laughter in general is what is what the feeling that you get. And that's why on the right, conservatives are, still have a sense of humor and are more apt to, say, hey, you're not going to tell me what to say. You're not going to tell me what to think. I'm going to do whatever I want. And so you've got some really funny memes. Now, sometimes they might be offensive. Sometimes the memes might be crude, but I perfectly support the right of you to make any sort of meme you want. For those of you that don't know what a meme is, it's just a picture, like a picture with a caption on it. And they're great. They're absolutely a lot of fun and everything else. Matter of fact, I had a meme sent to me last night. Let me This was funny, too. And you've probably seen this one. Hang on, let me pull it up here on my phone. So a friend of mine sent me this meme of a white Jeep Grand Cherokee. Have you seen this one? And it says, I bought a new Jeep and named it Elizabeth Warren because it's all white, but it says it's a Cherokee. And it's just this photo of a white Jeep Grand Cherokee. That's all it is. It's just a picture of a white with those. That's a meme. Okay? Pretty funny. But it will trigger people on the left because they don't like people laughing at their ridiculousness because they have to have other people constantly approve their existence and, you know, their way of thinking. Conservatives don't necessarily have to have anybody tell them that they are right because they know that they're right. I know that that's just the way a conservative thinks most of the time. This is what the reason we're talking about this is because over at Zero Hedge, there's a headline about what's going on over at 4chan and how 4chan sparked a massive triggering with something called NPC memes. And Twitter responded by banning something like 1,500 accounts. Now, first of all, this is really funny to me, and it should be really funny to other millennials, especially if you're a conservative. Now, if you're not a millennial, and I'm technically a millennial, but based on what the date range says, but I don't like to claim that. As you know, I'm more of an Oregon Trail generation kind of guy. But there are these things called, if you don't know what I'm talking about, surely you know there are these things called video games. And in these video games, people play them, and there's a story most of the time. You know, you're a main character, and you progress through some story. And in the story, you may meet other characters, and these other characters are going to respond to you. But in a lot of ways, they're going to respond in a limited, pre-programmed way. And you might go up to a character in a video game, and the character is going to say a certain thing, and then you're done. You get the information. But if you go right back up to that same character, right, he's going to tell you, or she's going to tell you exactly what you had just heard. Because that's how video games work most of the time, right? Unless you go do something else and then come back and something's different. Well, those characters are called NPCs, or non-playable characters, and they're in video games. Now, Joe, you can speak to this a lot more than I can, so if I mess up somewhere, feel free to jump in here. I just want to tell you how sensitive the left is. That's why we're doing this. So, we have a situation where people started comparing the mind of a liberal and these social justice warriors and these snowflakes and these people who are so easily triggered, they started comparing them to non-playable characters in video games. And they started to meme about it. And people said, oh, that's mean. And they got so offended. So the non-playable character meme essentially meant to ridicule the post-election perpetual outrage culture in which liberals simply parrot the latest talking points from their favorite pundits who do their thinking for them. I saw a meme the other day, which was just a bunch of sheep, and they were looking at the camera, and they were like, okay, it was after the Kavanaugh hearing, I think, and they were looking at the camera, it was CNN, and they were just like, the meme was, what are we supposed to do now? What are we supposed to think now? You know, pretty funny stuff. So they started this little gray cartoon character face. It's just a gray man, and that's what represents now in these memes a non-playable character. And they're even making fun of the outrage now. You see, non-playable character meme is dehumanizing. We are all unique and special, and it's just a mass of people that all look and think exactly the same, right? And that's what the left wants. Well, they want people to think all the same. They want you to be different. Their version of diversity is to look different, like be different colors, but all think the same things and agree totally in a totalitarian fashion. If you think outside, just look at what Kanye, right? Kanye is a diverse person according to his color of his skin, but I mean, he stepped outside of the where the goalposts are, where a black person is supposed to think between this goalpost and this goalpost. Kanye West decided to say racism can't control me, and the left lost their mind. Yeah, so here's a meme. Look, right here. Look at this non-playable character meme. All Trump supporters are literally Nazis. Being called an NPC is dehumanizing. Stop calling me a non-playable character. So what was the response? Over the weekend, this got to be so popular that Twitter responded by suspending 1,500 accounts associated with somebody, posting a non-playable character meme, which is a form of trolling, but I mean, come on. This is what people do on the internet now. So we're afraid of ideas. We're afraid of the right's ability to successfully make fun of the left. I mean, it's like the people on the right make fun of people on the left. People on the left, what do? Well, they take to the streets or join Antifa. The accounts violated Twitter's rules against intentionally misleading election-related content. Now, stop. Twitter suspended these people by saying that they were electioneering, that it was misleading content? That's ridiculous.
What some people don't realize with the internet and with the people on the internet is when you tell them not to do something or ask them not to do something, they're going to do it. So the fact that they banned 1,500 accounts for this, you can expect at least 3,000 or 4,000 more accounts to show up with this.
Yeah.
You're going to expect it.
Silicon Valley, though, has got to be stopped, though. I don't know what the answer is, but this, I mean, I know maybe the answer is just to double down like you're saying, Joe, but Twitter is not a success. If Twitter has these policies when it's first getting started, there is no Twitter. If Facebook started trying to control content in its infancy, there is no Facebook. If you say you can't post that, you can't say that. The very people that made these companies popular and wealthy, I mean, Twitter is essentially they're biting the hand that feeds them here. What is wrong with freedom? I mean, yeah, look, scroll down here because what they are banning here. Yeah, I know. Look at the CNN meme. Here's the CNN non-playable character meme. It's just a screenshot of CNN, and it says breaking: Orange man racist, Orange man bad, and it's just these blank faces on CNN. Scroll down to the Jimmy Kimmel meme, which is this is great. Look. This is great. All I said was, surely Orange Man is not that bad. Everybody at his work table, all girls look down with this blank stare of pre-programmed outrage and disgust. Yeah, I know. All of them are female, yeah. And then scroll down again. Let's look at this one. We have Jimmy Kimmel, a meme where it's Jimmy Kimmel, and he says, "So Trump," and then canned laughter, these pre-programmed bots, ha, ha, ha.
You could do the same thing with SNL.
Yeah,
in
exactly.
the slot for Jimmy Kimmel.
Yeah, so Trump, or like Alec Baldwin, who has the worst presidential impersonation of all time, because you can tell that the man personally hates the man he's portraying, which it's just, it goes on and on and on. And so because these are effective, and what are they effective at? They're effective at pointing out that there's something weird going on. There's some sort of force out there that's trying to propagandize a population, and they are trying to intentionally deceive you, and that's what these memes are trying to do. They are so worried about losing this election that they're now saying that this is electioneering, when you're just pointing out that the media is all parroting the same thing, and they're all telling you nothing to see here. I'm telling you, I think one of the if you've got a millennial. Okay, if you've got a millennial that's one of these pre-programmed non-playable characters that just says the same thing back to you, I want to encourage you to just, in all likelihood, they've seen Harry Potter. In all likelihood, they have seen Harry Potter, and they were so frustrated. I don't know which movie it was, but it's the movie where everything starts to go wrong for these characters that you follow for like 3 movies. And the Ministry of Magic has a press outlet, and they are totally propagandizing and lying to the people. And there's a ton of young people today that remember that. And you remember how evil it was, how frustrating it was, what it was doing and how there was only a few people that actually knew, and they had to be secret about it because so bring that up to your millennial. You got a millennial, ask him to say, hey, is this even possible? Somebody wrote a story about a government lying to their people intentionally to keep the truth from them because they didn't want. Is that possible? will somebody have a moment and see these memes that we see here are an attempt to make people to just get a light bulb to go off and be like, hey, think for yourself. Just think for yourself. Doesn't mean you have to love Donald Trump, but it does mean that maybe when people tell you that he is a KKK member, a Nazi, and a KGB agent, that maybe, just maybe, half the country isn't crazy, right? And that's what they're asking you to believe. Anyway, we're going to take a break, reset here. Joe, do you have anything else to add? Nope. I think Joe censored himself. The phone number, 870-275-9799. This is Conduit News Radio. Good morning to you. We'll be back in just a moment. Incentive to make sure it doesn't happen again to somebody else. And if you cap it at 500,000, the nursing homes are just going to have it's going to be an itemized thing. How many times we get sued if they can find a lawyer?
That's right.
How many times do they get sued? All right, well, now it's just on an Excel spreadsheet. It's a cost of doing business. Every couple years, we're going to pay 500,000 or less to somebody somewhere for killing somebody or doing something. And once that gets just kind of factored in, you don't really have an incentive to do right. Talk about greedy trial lawyers. Are you kidding me? This is about greedy big business. This is about greedy nursing homes. And I'd like to ask you, Jimmy, and we're talking with State Representative Jimmy Gazaway. We've got a judge who's in jail for taking a bribe from nursing homes. Or nursing home owner, allegedly. Only in Arkansas can you have a bribee, but we still don't have any charges against the briber. But this judge pled guilty for taking $10,000 to lower a nursing home judgment that was against a nursing home. We have convicted felon Jake Files in the discovery.
Money.
We know when when the bill was filed, I think
Prestige.
by it was Eddie Joe.
Available now from aristocrats serving Arkansas. From the Nata Rhino collection. The fragrance of backroom deals. Nepotism. The aroma of higher taxes. Subliminal deception. Deep state. Ace. Made right here in Arkansas by a taxpayer-funded Chinese factory. Every bottle carefully crafted for you. Gender neutral. Nothing says aristocrat like Essence of Bureaucrat. Essence of Bureaucrat by Asa.
Available now in the Marble Palace gift shop.
Paul Harrell parody. Exposing the truth and everything the Marble Palace establishment keep trying to cover up. It's Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell.
All right, welcome back. Phone number 870-275-9799. That's 870-275-9799. We'll be talking with Mr. Tim Loggins here in about, 8 minutes or so. He'll be in studio, and really excited about that. Folks, I got a little prediction to make. It has to do with this story that is over at Breitbart.com. Joe, can you throw this up on the screen here because I've lost internet connection? And let me try to connect again here. So it has to do with the fact, speaking of Silicon Valley banning people, over at Facebook, they decided to delete a disabled veteran's webpage without warning after he paid them $300,000 in advertising sales. Now, look at this. Now, I'm telling you right now, this is my prediction on this story. If the Republicans hold the House, I think, and maybe even whether they lose or not, which I think they're going to win, I think this man right here will be President Donald Trump's guest at the next State of the Union address to highlight. I think there will be a point in Donald Trump's State of the Union address where he talks about Silicon Valley and censoring. Tell me if I'm wrong. Guys, what do you think in there? Do you think that this guy, this story, when I read it last night, I thought, wow, what a great potential State of the Union guest for the president. I think in the State of the Union speech in January, there will be a portion of it to talk about Silicon Valley and censorship because it's a huge issue. And scroll down. Let's read this. So you've got this disabled vet. He lost both of his legs and one of his hands while serving this country overseas, and Facebook has blacklisted him because he had a successful page. On his website, which aims to put an end to social media censorship, Air Force veteran and triple amputee Brian Colfage explains who he is and the challenges he's facing, stating, I'm a veteran of the United States Air Force. I was severely wounded in combat on 9/11/2004 while serving in Iraq. I lost both my legs entirely and my right hand. I'm the most severely wounded U.S. airman to survive. Colfage continued, I'm not a conservative, I'm not a liberal, I'm an American with deep beliefs in what our country stands for. I proved this by vowing to protect and fighting for America's greatest tenet, free speech. Many Americans have fought for these political freedoms, freedom of speech, and every American has enjoyed those freedoms until today. October 11th, Facebook shut down thousands of Facebook accounts for their political opinions, stating that they don't have a legitimate political argument. Stop social media censorship now. Colfage was the administrator of a number of Facebook pages, notably the pages Right-Wing News and Military Grade Coffee, both of which were deleted recently as Facebook attempts, right before the election, mind you, to crack down on what it considers misinformation on the platform. Right-Wing News had more than 3 million followers at the time of its blacklisting by Facebook. In another Facebook post, Colfage stated, Facebook lied. They shut down my page because it was conservative, powerful, and the elections are in 2 weeks. We have major support flowing in all the way from the top of the Trump administration. Get ready. Colfage later said, I'm not a conservative. I'm not a liberal. I'm an American with deep beliefs. And we've read that already. Knowing, my life was spared when I went overseas, but I paid for freedom with one arm and both my legs. I've given limbs. I've stared death in the face firsthand. I've seen my legs blown to pieces and lost friends. Losing my limbs meant comparatively little to me because I gave it fighting for what I believed in. I believed America was the greatest country because we had freedom, and I've seen what oppression looks like. My sacrifices are nothing compared to what previous generations made in World War I, World War II, Korea, and Vietnam. Colfage stated that he has invested a large amount of money into Facebook's advertising system, and his pages are one of the key ways that he earns money to support his family. All right, this guy will, my prediction, this guy will be a guest of President Donald Trump's State of the Union. I think it's, and if not, if they haven't thought of that, somebody needs to tell them because it's a great idea. Need to address this. And listen, I know what some of you are out there saying, and I get it. It's, hey, Facebook's a private platform. Yes, it is. But they're colluding with every other Silicon Valley company as well. And at what point, where on the internet is it a public sidewalk? And you know, when do antitrust laws come in as well? Because you can't start a competitor to Facebook. Back in a minute. At the time, filed this situation's predecessor, this bill's predecessor. He got $80,000 from a nursing home owner right after it was filed. And it's like only in Arkansas do with all that information, you know, this thing still gets on the ballot under, a lot of, push from, the party that's in charge. And so is that just, they want to talk about special interest. Well, this is special interest. The reason we are voting on this is because of special interest.
Well, you're exactly right. I mean, I've heard some people refer to it as, I refer to it as the Price of Life Amendment. I've heard some people refer to it as the Special Interest Protection Act, because, the folks who are behind it, I mean, let's just be honest about it. It's the special interest. It's the nursing homes who, like you said, there's a former circuit judge who's in federal prison today because he pled guilty to accepting a bribe from a nursing home owner in the form of apparently a really large campaign contribution. There are the other allegations that you mentioned, and I think that's under investigation. We'll see what happens with that.
Yeah.
I don't want to accuse anybody of anything. You never really know. So I'm not going to go there. But the circuit judge pled guilty.
Yeah.
To accepting a bribe. And so who's behind this? The nursing homes, the trucking association, the medical society, the healthcare association. It's all the normal players. And like you said, one of the things I hear so often about this is, well, I'm a conservative, I'm a Republican, and conservatives and Republicans believe in tort reform. So shouldn't I be for this? I mean, isn't this a conservative thing? And, one of my responses to that is, this is not about Republican versus Democrat. This is not about, conservative versus liberal. The fact is, this is the history. You can go look it up. There's been tort reform offered in Arkansas. You can go back to 2001, 2003, back in previous legislative sessions, when the legislature was controlled by Democrats. I mean, go back and look at those bills and look who the sponsors on them were.
Yeah.
They were Democrats. The vast majority of the legislature in 2003 was controlled by Democrats. Here's the point. The legislative environment is the swamp, okay? And the swamp is still there. It's always been there. It's still there. It's just the alligators have changed from blue to red.
Mm-hmm.
And the players just, it's the same players in a lot of instances. They've just swapped a blue jacket for a red jacket. It's not about Republican versus Democrat. It's about the special interests trying to get their way.
Yeah, and they want to insulate themselves from having to, to pay out, this money. Let's talk about the other thing this does. It lets the legislature set rules.
The intersection of conservative ideas and reality. Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell.
All right, folks, welcome back. Hang on a second. Got an equipment timeout. That's for you. All right, so here we are. We are here in studio, and we've got Mr. Tim Loggins from the Patriots Fact 746 with us. Tim, welcome back to the show.
Thank you, Paul.
But it's great to have you here. It's great to have you here in studio, though. It's first time.
It is my first time here, and very humbled by this experience. I appreciate it, Paul.
Okay, well, I appreciate you being humbled. But there's nothing big time about this. All right, so let's get to the phones. I want to introduce you to Pamela DeYoung. Pamela, are you there on the phone?
I am here on the phone. Good morning.
Good morning, Pamela. Now, I want you to tell us what happened to you. You applied for a concealed carry handgun license, and then you found out some other information. You had an interaction via email. I've got the emails right here in front of me. You had some interaction with the Arkansas State Police. Tell us your story.
Well, I sent my application in on August 4th, and I called October 4th wanting to know the status of my application. I was told that there was only one gentleman that was doing the approval or denial of the applications, and that he was out of the office at the time and that he would call me back. So he ended up calling me back, and I mentioned to him that I would like to withdraw my application for the concealed weapon.
Now, why did you decide to withdraw your application?
Well, because I later found out that I didn't need one. The only reason why I would need one is if I went out of state, or if I was going to a gun show and purchasing multiple firearms.
So who first told you that about Act 746 and the Patriots of Act 746 and this concept of constitutional carry, where you said, hey, you know what, I don't need a permission slip from the government? Where'd you get that information?
Jan Morgan.
Jan Morgan. So you took a Jan Morgan class, and she said, hey, look, this is what the law says.
Yes, I did.
Okay. So then what did the Arkansas State Police tell you when you wanted to withdraw your application? And I've got the emails. You told them, hey, listen, I don't have to have this. But then they said that if you get the license, then you must carry concealed at all times. Isn't that right?
Correct. And I told him, well, what if I wanted to carry open? And he said, well, you couldn't. And if I wanted, and that if I was going, that I had to check with my county prosecutor, and get his interpretation.
Well, that's parroting exactly what the governor has said. I'm going to bring in, just hold right there, Pamela. I'm going to bring in Tim Loggins with the Patriots of Act 746. Now, Tim, correct me if I'm wrong, but that's not accurate to say that if you have a concealed handgun carry, you can't carry under 746 openly. That's not accurate, is it?
That's absolutely incorrect. Act 486 of 2017 went into effect in December. It's now 573-324, and it prohibits the state police from pulling your license if you choose to constitutionally carry or open carry. So that was just completely wrong, and that law was written directly for the state police because they'd been pulling license, CHCLs from people that were open carrying,
mm-hmm.
and that's the reason the law was written, and the state police are aware of that.
And that's what's so frustrating. That was a bill that was sponsored, I think, by State Representative John Payton.
That's
right?
correct.
We covered it pretty extensively a few times on the program because we said, isn't this great to see government specifically work to bring a state agency into check, because they were not recognizing really what Act 746 was all about. And so this was in a way to clarify, say, hey, listen, you can't punish somebody who's got a concealed carry license for open carrying under
That's correct. And there's a couple things important about Act 486. Number one, it stops the state police from overreaching their authority and staying within the law and recognizing 573-120. And secondly, it's the only place in Arkansas Code that specifically addresses that we have a constitutional right to carry. It codifies the right to carry constitutionally. So that's pretty important as well.
Yeah.
But this information that she got from Mr. Trammell is just, it's not even misleading. It's a lie.
Mm-hmm.
It's wrong.
Yeah. Yeah. And I've got the emails right here. I mean, this is all documented. Let's bring Pamela DeYoung back in. So Pamela, what happened next?
Well, he told me that I would be in the denied status because of the withdrawal, and apparently they don't have a withdrawal on their IT system. They either have approved or denied, and he said if I withdrew that my status would become denied, and that really bothered me because, okay, I'm approved officially, but then when I withdraw, it's going to be denied. So that's why I made a request to him. He had said, I called him back 3 times, and he kept telling me it's non-refundable. Well, I had sent in a money order for $137, and so he told me if I would like to request a refund, you may include that in my response. I would forward it to he would forward it to his supervision for review. And that's Mr. Lindsey Williams.
Okay.
So, I sent him a letter back saying that my understanding of my application will be denied status due to my withdrawal when the application would have been approved if not for my withdrawal. And then I told him this denial status would affect me in the future if or when I decided to apply for a license. I said I would like to request a status of the application be approved/withdrawn instead of denial.
And so I understand that you eventually did get a refund. Is that right?
I did. Mr. Lindsey Williams, he and Mr. Tremmel had a conference call with me on Friday, and he approved my refund when it's non-refundable normally. But he approved my refund for me, and I got 2 checks in the mail though. One was for $10 from the Arkansas Investigative Center, and then for $10, and then the other one was for $127 from the Arkansas State Police. I guess that's how they divide it up.
Okay, so Tim, why do you think that is? That's interesting because when we pay the Arkansas State Police to a permission slip to get a permission slip back, we're not sending them 2 checks. We're sending them one lump sum. So she got a reimbursement from an investigative arm and from the Arkansas State Police. What does that tell you?
I talked to Mr. Young yesterday or day before. I believe the $10 check was from ACIC, which would be a background check. We've asked many times before, what is the breakdown of the fees associated with the CHCL? How much does it actually cost directly, the state police to give us the CHCL? How much does the background check cost? How much does printing the license cost? And, I'm speculating here, and I would love for the state police to answer this, but it seems like $10 is what it's costing them for the background check, and then $127 is what profit? I would love to have that profit margin in a business, wouldn't you, Paul?
Oh, my goodness, yeah. Every time we make a sale, it's just $127 profit. It's $10 overhead, essentially.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's crazy. Yeah, I think that's a good deduction there. I think that's a sound deduction that she got 2 checks for the reimbursement because it's telling us, hey, it only costs $10 to do a background check and the rest. And that is why, if that's true, that would be why the Arkansas State Police are so hesitant to recognize constitutional carry and give this is not accurate information. This is from the email. The difference, let's see, this is from James Trammell. I then let you know, this is writing to Pamela DeYoung, who's on the phone with us. Then let you know the difference between being issued an Arkansas concealed carry license and not having a carry license. If you were issued a carry license, Arkansas Code states that a handgun must be concealed at all times from public view, and if no license was issued to you, you would need to talk to the prosecutor where you live or the county you travel. And this is, this is not government. It's like, oh, well, we don't really know what the law is if we don't issue the license, so talk to your prosecutor. And this is really coming right from ASA. That's exactly what ASA has said.
A couple of points, Paul. There's a preemption law in Arkansas statutes that says that you cannot pass laws locally on guns different than what the state law says. So that statement that you've got to check with a county prosecutor, that's a violation of Arkansas statutes. That's incorrect information. Secondly, he says the code, the law, says you must conceal carry if you have a permit. That's incorrect information, and that's kind of legal advice, although he doesn't state what the code is. Now, is Mr. Trammell, is he a sworn officer? I don't believe he is. His title says IT manager or something of that nature. But he's telling the law to a citizen, Pamela, telling her what the law is. Now, a police officer would have no trouble telling you that the speed limit's 55 and you violated it. And they could show you the statute that you violated.
Yep.
Why did he say it violates code without saying what code? And I want to point out another interesting thing. When he forwarded it to Major Lindsey Williams, the major said, I can't give you legal advice.
Yeah.
That's exactly what Mr. Trammell did in the first email. And so there was some backtracking going on there, and appropriately so, I would say. The major was correct. I wished he would have addressed the misinformation, though.
Yeah, I do as well. So, Pamela, right now, what is your status as far? You don't have a concealed carry permit. You don't want one. You'd rather just carry under constitutional carry. The sad thing is it shouldn't make a difference. That's the real story here, is if you wanted a concealed carry license for reciprocity purposes to be able to travel out of state and you wanted to open carry in Arkansas, The law says that you're perfectly free to do so, and yet we have a government agency, giving out, parroting bad information. What are your thoughts? Where are you now, Pamela, with the whole process?
Well, they need to be telling people the truth and what's exactly the law. I mean, not telling me that I only can conceal carry. And there's a lot of people that are sending in applications for this concealed weapon license when if they're not going out of state or going to a gun show and purchasing a bunch of firearms, then you don't really need it. And they're telling people that they have to have it, and they're misinforming people. Even the Amber Pritchard that answered the phone was telling people that. And from my understanding, Mr. Tremel had mentioned, well, that's what he was told to tell people. I don't know who from, but that's what he's supposed to say to people.
Tim, what do you think?
They just need to tell the truth.
Yeah, I agree. Tim.
Mr. Trammell could have bad information. I mean, the law has been in effect, I believe, since December of 2017. So, I mean, it's not like it just passed. It's not like we just changed the law. And even prior to 486, the state police own rules, I believe it was 1.5 in the rules for the CHCO, said that they wouldn't pull your permit for open carrying. But so this isn't new. So I'm not sure why this information isn't getting disseminated.
Mm-hmm.
I do want to draw your attention to the email chain. And Mr. Trammell started it. He CC'd Major Williams. And you see the difference when Major Williams CC'd, I believe it's Lieutenant McLaurin. You may remember last session the testimony from the Arkansas State Police about how they needed the CHCO program to buy squad cars.
Yeah.
That's the same person that made that testimony.
Mm-hmm.
I find it interesting that the tone changed completely whenever it became legal questions from Pamela. She asked, what is the statute? What is the penalty? And when she got specific on her questions, they kind of backed up a little bit and said, wait a minute, we're overstepping. We need to make sure that we're not giving legal advice and incorrect information.
And that's encouraging that they it's almost like they know. I mean, they know they know the law right now is on the side of the common man. And that's really the way I look at this. Now, from a government standpoint, it is wildly frustrating that the law is on our side now in terms of, deference to the citizen and the freedom of the human right of self-defense and carrying a weapon. And our government agencies just refuse to address it in a lot of ways. They're just saying no, we don't like this, because we need our funding. That's really in a way a crisis because the consent of the governor is being essentially thwarted here.
I want to make a point, Paul. The problem is not with the rank and file, with the line officers, with the Trooper Joe.
Agree.
We're not having a bunch of arrests. We're not having a bunch of false arrests or false citations. The average trooper, the average law enforcement officer, they understand the law and they know what it is. This misinformation is being started at the top, and I would say with ASA, being passed down to the colonel, and it's misinformation because of money. It's not the rank and file officers doing this. It's the top echelon of the Arkansas State Police and other locations, and it's because of the money.
Yeah.
They're lying to us so they can secure funding, and that is so wrong. I mean, you got folks that are afraid to carry a weapon that need it, but they can't afford a CHCO. It's $130 plus a class might be $100. Buying your weapon is going to be $300, $400, $500, $600. Okay, that's cost prohibitive to a lot of folks. You got to make a decision: do I pay my light bill or do I get a concealed handgun license? And you don't need one. So we're putting citizens at risk because we're trying to protect a revenue stream. That's not how it's supposed to be, and that needs to stop.
Yeah.
And I applaud Pamela for going that extra mile, for starting this conversation,
and getting it in writing.
Getting it in writing, which is important. Not only do we know who did it, we've got their writing that said the misinformation, and that's important. Yeah. And I appreciate that she did that.
Pamela DeYoung, what do you think about the Patriots of Act 746? Pamela?
Well,
Go ahead.
Hello.
Yes.
Well, Well, I'm all for it. I mean, that's what it should be. You know, we should be going by that, and that's our God-given right of having, you know, bear arms.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Well, I definitely know that if it wasn't for the Patriots Fact 746, number one, we wouldn't be having this segment right now because this wouldn't have been brought to my attention. You know, wouldn't have been brought to the show's attention. And,
exactly.
Yeah. And I was talking to somebody the other day, and essentially at this point, especially with the successful meetings that y'all are having, you guys, Patriots Vac 746 is the most successful grassroots game in the state of Arkansas right now, period, bar none. There's nothing even close to it. And matter of fact, I'm gonna hold Tim over. We're going to take a break. Pamela DeYoung, I appreciate you. Thank you so much for being on the program, and let us know if anything else happens, especially as a result of this going out on airways all across the state, okay?
Okay, I will. I appreciate you having me on.
All righty. Thank you, Pamela DeYoung.
Thanks.
Folks,
have a great day.
You too. Folks, we're going to take a break. Be right back here with Mr. Tim Loggins and the Patriots Vac 746. Back in a minute.
Russellville-based firearms manufacturer Omega are making clones of the most notable German firearms in the world. These delayed rotor-lock firearms have been and are currently used by law enforcement and military worldwide. At Omega, they manufacture their guns right here in Arkansas and produce the best reproduction in the marketplace that comes with a complete 5-year warranty. At Omega, they take firearm manufacturing seriously and offer discounts to active and retired law enforcement. Whether you're using Omega firearms to defend the public, defend your family, or for target practice, Omega has your back. For pricing, go to omega-guns.com. That's omega-guns.com. If you're like me, you believe that small business is the heart of Arkansas's economic engine, and it should be viewed that way by the politicians in Little Rock. Conduit for Commerce also believes, like you and I believe, policies that achieve less regulation and lower taxation help small business in Arkansas thrive. Other policies like small, constitutionally consistent government and reducing citizen dependency on government keeps it from growing and expanding its influence on our daily lives. Conduit for Commerce works every day to educate the general public and legislators on these important priorities in the name of Arkansas small business. By the way, contributions to Conduit for Commerce are tax deductible. Log on now to conduitforcommerce.org and click on Contact Us on the right side of the page. That's conduitforcommerce.org. Go there now and learn the facts on protecting small business in Arkansas.
Rules of evidence for the judicial branch. It's a clear violation of the separation of powers, in my opinion. So talk a little bit about that. I don't trust the swamp to set these rules any more than I trust the judiciary to set them. I'd rather it be where it's supposed to be, in the courts.
Yeah, right. Yeah, that's the other thing about it. So there are 3 parts primarily, and I kind of touched on the attorney part. If you limit attorneys' fees where they can't make any money on a case, then you'll have people who may have legitimate claims who won't be able to get a lawyer, who won't be able to bring that claim, and no one's ever held accountable. The second part, the damage caps, of course, which I talked briefly about. One thing that I didn't mention in there, and you talked about being able to hold those responsible for harming others accountable, and that is, not only does it cap non-economic damages, again, which are pain and suffering, scarring and permanent disfigurement, loss of a bodily member or function, loss of
Need your daily news fix? Don't forget to tune in to Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell.
So we got about 4 minutes until our break kicks here. We're here with Tim Loggins. He's with the Patriots of Vac 746. So go to Facebook.com, search for the Patriots of Vac 746, and ask to be a member of their Facebook page. And become part of the online sensation today, grassroots. I was just telling you, Tim, telling you from what you can see, the meetings, the turnouts. It's the biggest grassroots game in the state right now. It's a force of people that want to secure their rights. How did that meeting go in Newport this past Saturday?
Past Saturday, Paul, we had over, I want to say 65 folks that showed up. We had Representative Jimmy Gazaway, Representative Dan Sullivan, Representative Brant Smith, Senator Linda Collins Smith, Senator Ronald Caldwell, candidate Craig Christensen.
Mm-hmm. We're going to get him on the show next week.
Outstanding guy, a good conservative guy.
Yeah.
We had a lot of political leaders that were there. supporting our constitutional carry rights. Had a lot of folks from the Jackson County area, new members wanting to know about what the law says, learning their rights. Mr. David Ferguson attended. He spoke at the meeting.
Oh, yeah.
He's a legend.
Oh, yeah, he is.
It seems like every meeting is getting better results. Every meeting is getting more excitement. You can feel the excitement in the air when you start a meeting now, and it excites me. This movement's growing. Folks want to know what the law is. They want to know what their rights are, and they want the government to be honest with them. Mm-hmm. And I think Patriots is making a difference. This is how you make a difference as an individual. You know, if I called those legislators and said, hey, come meet me in Newport, they're not going to do that. But when I say Patriots has 1,600 folks in Northeast Arkansas, and we're wanting you to come and meet with us, that has an effect. They understand the number of voters involved. Mm-hmm. And, you know, everyone that I mentioned, they stand firmly behind Patriots Act 746.
Yeah. Well, and I think this is beneficial for our human right to self-defense. Patriots Act 746 is forging relationships with these lawmakers to the point where, hey, listen, if the General Assembly tries to do this bait and switch, red flag laws, or clarify essentially there are these legislators that know, oh, hang on a second, here's this group that, you know, that we will listen to, number one. And also, if we don't listen to them, look, there's all these people here who are also going to be calling me saying, hey, man, will you stand up for our rights? And this is not just going on in Northeast Arkansas. There's a chapter in Northwest Arkansas. We got these blooming chapters in South Arkansas. How's that going for you
A couple
guys?
of weeks ago, we attended a meeting down in South Arkansas at Warren. Great meeting, great turnout. The excitement's building down there. There was probably 25 or 30 folks that showed up, and for a new chapter, that's pretty good. Mm-hmm. And I don't know what their membership is. It's over 100 now after just a couple of months. Northwest Arkansas is having some great speakers, having some exciting meetings. They're having 40 folks, 50 folks coming to their meet and greets.
And they're also dressing in kilts.
They did have a kilt walk, which is pretty exciting. I told them, no, thank you. I don't look good in jeans, let alone a kilt. So I declined to participate.
I saw some of the photos, and some of these kilts, I mean, they were tailored. I mean, they look good.
They look good on them.
Yeah, that's true.
But not for me. Yeah. But I appreciate what they're doing. All over the state, we got this grassroots movement that's growing. And it's a conservative movement. It's a constitutional movement. Mm-hmm. And I think ultimately it's going to be good for conservatism in Arkansas.
Yeah.
Not just gun rights, but conservatism.
Well, it's getting people, I think, conditioned. If the law, you know, what does the law say about guns? Let's follow it.
That's correct.
Okay, what does the law say about, you know, I don't know, 3/4 majority to pass spending bills out of each chamber? It means follow the law. You know, don't do lying out of veto scams.
And you know, just little things, Paul. Folks don't understand a lot. Your average folks don't understand the process. They don't know how to contact their legislators. They don't know how they can make a difference. And Patriots is an avenue that's introducing them to activism. And yes, it's activism. It's a grassroots movement. Normal folks getting involved with their government, taking their government back. That's really what we're doing. We're educating people. We're interacting with elected officials, and we're making a difference in people's lives. And I'm so proud to be associated with this group. There's a great group of folks, man. We start out each meeting with Pledge of Allegiance and a prayer, and we have a fellowship. It's not just a meeting. We have a fellowship. And it's probably the best group I've ever been associated with.
Wow. Tim Loggins with the Patriots Act 746. Look him up on Facebook. It's great to have you all the way in from Pocahontas. We appreciate you coming in studio for us, and maybe we can talk to you again later in the broadcast.
Sounds great.
Yeah, folks, coming up on the program, we're going to be talking and interviewing Casey Copeland, who's a libertarian, who's running for the State House, and definitely want to stay tuned for that. That's coming up next. And then at the bottom of the next hour, at 7:33, State Representative Mark Lowry on his race. He has a Democrat opponent. We'll talk to him about what the stakes are. Don't go anywhere, folks. One more hour coming your way next.
Talk of Northeast Arkansas. This is News Talk 101.3 FM and 12:30 AM KBTM, Jonesboro, an EAB radio station.
Companionship and loss of life. Not only does it cap all of those things at $500,000, which are currently unlimited. Right now, if you went to court in Arkansas, you know, you can be made whole. as a victim of, abuse or neglect or being ran over by an 18-wheeler, nursing home abuse, whatever, the courts have the ability to make you whole. If that $500,000 cap for non-economic damages passes, they won't have the ability to make people whole again. But then the other portion of that cap is the cap on punitive damages, which it caps at $500,000 or 3 times the compensatory damages. In other words, the total amount of damages. Well, here's the problem with that. We live in an economy of scale. Mm-hmm. And you may have seen recently, the news reports where Apple was the first corporation ever to reach $1 trillion valuation.
Yes.
Did you see that?
Yes, I did. Yeah.
And I think Amazon's right on its heels. Amazon will probably be worth $1 trillion pretty soon. And punitive damages are those damages that we recognize in the law that are used to deter future bad conduct. In other words, they're used to punish bad actors, to deter them from ever doing that thing again. And what Issue 1 will do is it will limit punitive damages to $500,000 or 3 times the compensatory. And I don't mean to make $500,000 not sound like a lot of money, because it is. But again, in an economy of scale, where you're talking about you have corporations valued at $1 trillion.
Yeah.
Many of the Fortune 500 companies, multiple billion dollars. Big Pharma, for example, you have CVS Caremark is buying out the insurance company Aetna.
Yep.
And I think they're my understanding is they're paying cash of like $60-something billion. And you're going to say $500,000 in punitive damages to a company like that is going to deter their future bad conduct?
It's nothing.
I mean, what a joke.
It's a drop in the bucket. Yeah.
I mean, $500,000 again is a lot of money. But when you're $1 trillion corporation, or when you're a multi-billion-dollar corporation, is $500,000 or 3 times the overall compensatory likely to deter future bad conduct?
They won't change their behavior at all.
No.
Yeah, not at all.
So, let's be real. But the last
That's
part.
truth right there. That's State Representative Jimmy Gasway. That's a lot of truth. Go ahead.
So the last part that you mentioned, so I wanted to get to that too, which is the rule-making authority. And, I've said that, this could be maybe the most dangerous part. I mean, it's certainly the most insidious. In other words, people aren't going to recognize its true danger, and they knew that. Mm-hmm. But this may be the part that they want the most, because if you can control the rules, you can control the outcome. Okay? So let me give you some examples, like some of the rules of evidence, for example, in a case. If you can control what evidence is admissible in a case, so maybe they change the rules of hearsay to where, you have somebody, well, I know this happened, somebody told me that. Well, you're not going to be able to say that in court. You'll never be able to get it in and get it admitted. If you can't get it admitted, maybe you can't prove your case. The rules of discovery, for example, and that's one of the big ones. Discovery is that portion in a lawsuit where you can request documents, you can make the other side answer questions, you can take depositions. It's where you build your case. It's where you gather the evidence from the other side that you need in order to make your case. Mm-hmm. Well, guess what? If they can control those rules, they can keep things secret that maybe not allow you access to things. So, for example, one of the bills that they tried to pass in the past was to make nursing home inspection reports, not eligible.
Yeah, that's hearsay.
To be able to obtain or to use those mm-hmm. in court. Or let's say you want to subpoena witnesses to help make your case. One of the things, my understanding, that's been proposed in the past is if a nursing home employee would have to get the permission of the nursing home owner to testify as an expert witness in a case, or something along those lines. And even if that's not exactly what they did in the past, if they can control the rules, that may be the things that you'll see in the future. Now they'll say, "Oh, we don't want to do that."
That's ridiculous. I mean, we can't control what future legislators are going to do.
Right.
Even if we believe them now.
That's right.
They're going to be. They're different people.
Yeah. So maybe not the next session, but what about the session after that?
Yeah.
Let's see where it actually goes. So that to me is one of the most dangerous things about it. Mm-hmm. That's hidden out there. Or another point there, if you can control the rules, you just make it real.
I think it's time we ask ourselves if we still know the freedoms that were intended for us by the Founding Fathers.
They seem to be in full-scale retreat from spending cuts and are talking about raising people's taxes again. And I have only one.
All right, folks, welcome. It is hour number 2, coming off of a big hour. If you missed it, then you missed a great Patriots of Act 746 segment with Mr. Tim Loggins here in studio with us. And we also had a big story, a breaking story about some inaccurate information that's being passed on about your Second Amendment rights from the Arkansas State Police to, citizens with inquiring minds. So we talked to a woman by the name of Pamela DeYoung. All that is going to be up. Well, the podcast is already uploading the audio-only version. If you want the video version, though, you're going to have to wait until this broadcast is available. Want to redirect you again to conduitnews.com. A couple of the headlines up right now. ASA's carefully crafted language on Trump's trade war with China. Definitely want to go read that at conduitnews.com as well as share it. Also, the video that's been making its rounds around the internet that Conduit News produced. ASA undermines Trump/Pence on communist China. This is an audio/video clip that you must watch. It is very educational and really, really good. All right, so, folks, I want to welcome back to the program. We've got Libertarian candidate Mr. Casey Copeland is on the line. He's a Libertarian. He's running for state representative over in District 80. Casey, welcome back to the show.
Good morning, Paul. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, to go ahead and tell us geographically, District 80, what part of the state is that, and what are the boundaries?
Sure. The major towns are Cedarville, Prairie Grove, and Lincoln, and it runs from a little bit south of Uniontown down in Crawford County, all the way up the western side of Arkansas to the Cincinnati area, and then over to Wheeler, and just kind of western Washington County and northwestern Crawford County.
Last time I had you on, Casey, I didn't realize it, but apparently it was controversial. A lot of Marble Palace, I guess glazed over Republicans really upset that I'm having a Libertarian on because the incumbent, Charlene Fite, I think she is a Republican, and so they were upset that we had you on. But I'm not afraid of debating ideas. What are your ideas? What's your government philosophy?
Well, I guess to address that, I think the problem that Republicans in the state, well, at least the ones in office have, is that they're no longer the small limited government party, and there are still a lot of people in Arkansas that believe in small limited government, and if they abandon that voice, then somebody's going to step in, and that's going to be the Libertarian Party. So, they've brought it on themselves by becoming the party of lesser government and not really the party of limited government, because when people go to the polls, they have two choices: big government or bigger government. And with the Libertarians, we are actually a party of small limited government, and that's what a lot of people still want.
That is very interesting. I like how you've put that. I've never actually heard it said that way before. What do you I was talking with a Libertarian the other day, and we did talk a little bit about the fact that we'd love to talk about these specific issues. We'd love to talk about specific issues with government, but right now, we really got to focus on getting an honest government back to where the people can trust it. So I'm to the point now. Don't get me wrong. I don't want a Democrat in office. I wouldn't vote for a Democrat in office or a progressive in office because I disagree with him. But I would prefer an honest. If you're going to be in office, I prefer one to be honest, to actually tell you, well, I think we should all be forced to put all of our money into one big pot and divide it up equally, so that we could have an actual debate. Right now, and I think there are honest people who are socialists, and I think there are honest people who are not. We got to have honest politicians that are not going down there trying to, get something for themselves. And we have seen that in the headlines daily, that they're carving out financial niches for themselves, that they are doing these illegal things. And so do you agree with that? I know that was a long-winded question. We got to have honest government.
Well, absolutely. I don't know anybody who would disagree with that. But for instance, and I agree with you. There are a lot of people on the left who we disagree with, but they're honest and they're upfront about what they want. Let's take Medicaid expansion, for example. The Democrat candidate, like most Democratic candidates in Arkansas, the Democrat in my race supports Medicaid expansion and opposes the work requirement. That's honest. You can respect that even if you disagree with it. Representative Fight says that she does not like Medicaid expansion or Obamacare, but somehow the work requirements make it tolerable. Well, the fact is she voted for Arkansas Works 2 years before the work requirement was approved. So I think that's a little bit disingenuous. So I think that lacks the straightforward approach that people, especially in District 80 and in rural areas, that they want from the representatives. Tell us what you think, and if we don't agree with it, fine, but don't beat around the bush. Just tell us what you think.
Yeah. Hey, let me ask you this about the work requirements. Do you think that they are working in terms of, you do have headlines about this many thousand people removed from the rolls. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, if the purpose of the work requirement was to kick people off Medicaid, it's working. But if the purpose of the work requirement was to get people to work, it's not working.
That's interesting. You see, what I'm wondering is this, Casey. I don't know. I know what the headlines say. Okay, the headlines say it's kicking people off. The left, Arkansas Times, the universe kind of writes itself. The Arkansas Times is actually, outraged. How could you do this? But if you're not doing the redeterminations, meaning, and if you're not doing the Paris match, which we've broke that story. State Representative Dan Sullivan has told us, that some of his research and everything, that they're not doing this Paris match, which is when you cross-reference Arkansas's Medicaid rolls with other states' Medicaid rolls. And one of the reasons, the speculation is that they're not doing these federally mandated checks because DHS is focusing everything into Arkansas Works. So this really could just be a wash. You get the positive headlines that 4,000 people got removed last month. Well, if they'd have been doing the redeterminations and the checks, it might have been the same or more than that being removed. So I think what we have here is kind of a potential just a shell game. We get the positive headlines. See, it's working. We told you all along, work requirements. But if you're not doing the other things that you're supposed to be doing, according to federal law, by the way, which is redeterminations and this other stuff, it may be just kind of propaganda is what I'm worried about here.
Yeah, I think you're right. And if you look at the current leadership in the last few legislative sessions where they lower one tax and raise others, we know that they know how to play that game. We know that
in the name of Arkansas small business. By the way, contributions to Conduit for Commerce are tax deductible. Log on now to conduitforcommerce.org and click on Contact Us on the right side of the page. That's conduitforcommerce.org. Go there now and learn the facts on protecting small business in Arkansas.
Yeah. So, at that point, I had filed, along with Brian King, he was the Senate sponsor, kind of an alternative tort reform proposed constitutional amendment. That never made it out of the subcommittee, okay? So they knew which ones were coming out.
Yeah.
And SJR 8.
They stacked the deck to get the results they wanted. Yeah.
So SJR 8 was one of them. So that comes out of the subcommittee. That's one of the 4 that come out of the subcommittee that goes before the full committee. The Chief Justice of the Supreme Court comes to state agencies House committee and testifies against SJR 8. And it felt to me as if it was completely disregarded. I mean, this is someone, the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court, the Chief Judge in our entire state judiciary, telling the state agencies committee, I believe this is bad. They didn't care. They passed it. And so then, after it passes.
Determined to drain the swamp in Little Rock, it's Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell.
All right, folks, welcome back to the program. Tomorrow on the program, let's see here. We're going to have to reschedule Mark Lowry. So I'm going to try to get State Representative Mark Lowry scheduled for tomorrow. It looks like we do have an opening at 7 tomorrow. And then tomorrow on the program, we also have got Supreme Court Justice candidate David Sterling will be on the program. Let's see, for Friday, we'll be talking with the Johnson County Republican Chair, Katie Howard. Excited to talk to her. And then also candidate for State Representative Jason Dobson is going to be back on the show as well. So we got a kind of jam-packed rest of the week. It's interesting. Our internet is back up. We are back up and going. So that's positive. And let's see here. What else do we have? I want to remind everybody to go to conduitnews.com. Check out the headlines there. Also, go to the YouTube channel. Go to the YouTube channel and click the subscribe button, Conduit News YouTube, and click the little bell to receive notifications of when we're live. Then you're going to get our smaller videos. And we would appreciate that very much. Also, I'm going to come back to this story. You're going to hear this story, I think, a lot. Facebook has deleted a disabled veterans page without warning. This is a tragedy, in my opinion. Brian Colfage is his name. He lost both of his legs and his hand back in 2004 on September 11th, no less, in Iraq. He's been pretty successful at, navigating online, making a living online. His page with 3 million followers called Right Wing News was shut down because we're 2 weeks out of the election, and they say that he's electioneering. He's very upset. He's accusing Facebook of lying. They shut down my page because it was conservative, powerful, and elections are in 2 weeks. We have major support flowing in all the way from the top of the Trump administration. Get ready. I'm not conservative. I'm not liberal. I'm an American with deep beliefs in what our country stands for. I proved this by fighting for America, knowing I may not return home. He goes on to talk about the importance of free speech. Folks, these social media giants, I don't know what's going to happen, but something's got to happen. But let me make a prediction from the first hour. I'll bring it into the second. I bet this guy, Colfage, I think he'd make a great State of the Union special guest for President Donald Trump when he starts talking about Silicon Valley monoliths and their censorship. But they're individual private companies. Arkansas, be safe.